Hello YouTube and welcome to a quick video review of Agema Miniatures' Republican Roman Velites. You get 16 miniatures in the box, 28mm multi-part plastic miniatures. I got these from Northstar a while back when they were having one of their sales, just after Christmas in fact. And I picked this up for a very good price, and I thought, you know, I've never seen Agema Miniatures and stuff, I'd like to see what they've done. Because obviously you see the pictures on the internet and you always wonder, is this as good as it looks? And there's a difference, I think, between seeing miniatures, you know, on the website where they are beautifully painted, such as the example on this box here, and then actually having them in your hands yourself, because things like depth of detail can vary. You know, a good paint job will make that depth of detail, you know, not so apparent until you actually see the miniatures. So obviously, as we've got here, you can see the picture on the front of the box art. Sorry about the glare, it's just a lamp. You can see the Velites there. They were the lowest rung of the Plebeian Roman army. That's the army before the time of Caesar. So, you know, the army that fought against Hannibal, that sort of era, Scipio Africanus and so on. So the Middle Republic, if you will. And these were the lowest rung because your role in the army was essentially decided by your wealth. And these were the lowest order, and they were the skirmishers. So they typically skirmish in front of the army. With javelins and swords and little bucklers, and then on top of that there's this sort of thing persists where they have wolf or badger pelts on their heads. So lovely box, I think, really high production values. You know, you can see there some painted examples on the edge, and also you know, just a really sharp production. On the back here they show you an actual painted up unit to give you some idea of how to paint them, and you'll notice they're not all wearing red and they're not all wearing white. It's one of these. Linen is a very versatile cloth, and it does tend to take a lot of colours. Gives you a bit of background there. Tells you all about the need for light infantry during the Second Punic War. The Roman identified a need for more effective light infantry, and it gives you a whole lot of nonsense. The older levies were rearmed with helmets, shields, and swords, in addition to light pilums to create the velites. I'm a classicist. I will dispute this somewhat. I think they're being a bit generous as to how much the levies were rearmed, but there you go. And there's examples of close-ups, and it's actually a really great idea having the actual size on the box as well, to give you a real sense, I think, of you know, of how these match up. You don't have to really buy a box without knowing what you're getting into. So that's the box. You get 16 miniatures in the box, okay, and what you get is a whole bunch of sprues. Okay, and I'll just show you one because they're all exactly identical. So you get 8 of these. Okay, it's a very simple sprue, as you can see, and what we'll do now is I'll just set it up for a more static thing so I can point and show a bit better. Okay, and we're back. So just to run through what the contents of the sprues. Now, as I mentioned, there are 8 identical sprues, so you're going to look at exactly the same sprues from sprue to sprue to sprue, which is one of the issues I think I might have with this kit. So we have 2 bodies, okay, one slightly tossed or contrapost body shape, and then another looking kind of is leaning forward, which is good. They're relatively static, but also there's a sense of movement about them. They're not just standing still. You get 2 heads. What I'll do is I will zoom in, bring them in nice and close, so you can see the faces. The detail is good actually, and when you see the painted examples that I've done, you will see what I mean. But yeah, I mean, there's detail there. These are just the plain helmeted types, and then we've got an unsheathed sword, which is really good to have if you think about it. And this is one of the, it means you don't have to actually clip off the top yourself. And a sheathed gladius, okay. And then another head, which is your sort of unit leader, if you will, or your badger / wolf pelted head. Okay, I'll flip this around in a moment and we can have a look from the back end. And then arms, you obviously need those. So we've got left arm there for the shield, another left arm with a slightly more forward arm, so you can imagine the guy holding the shield out in front of him, sort of at arm's length. And then we've got a sword arm, which obviously goes with your with your empty scabbard, and then a throwing hand. And it's interesting that the fingers have actually been modelled, and I'll show you when I flip it over why that's important. So shield, a plain shield with no javelins behind it, a second shield with some spare javelins behind it, and then finally the actual javelin itself. Now these have been modelled what looks like a pilum, Again, I think as a classicist I'll take issue with that. I don't think that Velites were issued with Pila, but there you go. This obviously goes, this javelin obviously goes in the hand of the throwing hand. And then finally, of course, we've got the wolf pelt that goes with this fella here, and loops over his neck. And I found during assembly that was a bit of a pain in the neck, really, because it doesn't sit on it neatly. It kind of dangles a little, so you've got to loop it over this almost non-existent neck stem, yeah, and try and make it work with the head at the same time. It is a bit fiddly, I would say, but I found the detail on these miniatures are really nice. I mean, the cloth folds are good. You can highlight them. I think if you were going to go for a dip method, which I think would be quite wise if you're going to do a Republican army, you know, this will take the dip. So let's look at it from behind, and again, really deep definition on this guy's calves and rear thigh. He's obviously been not been missing out leg day. But a belt detail there. And again, there's the thing with these miniatures. One of the sort of good things and bad things, I guess, is that they are very, 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 very simple. Like, the guys are wearing little linen tunics and not much else. There's not a lot of a lot going on. You can see the pelt. This is the reverse side, little tiny feet there. It's good detail. This is one of the things I was quite chuffed with, is if you can, hopefully I'll get you a good angle, but you'll notice that the fingers there, the index and the middle finger, let me just try and pull out and get a bit of focus there. There we go. You can see that there's two fingers extended out there, right, if I give it to you in that angle there. And that's actually quite good, because the way the javelin is thrown is that it isn't thrown with your whole hand wrapped around it. It's not a very effective way of throwing. Anybody that's ever thrown a cricket ball will know that, is that your hand naturally adopts when you throw something properly, that is, and you don't just lob it. You tend to grip it almost in the front of your hand, not like that. If you throw a cricket ball like that, it's not very good. With that, you actually get a much better throw, much more accurate. So it's nice to see that the miniatures have kind of recognised that if you're going to throw a javelin, there's a sort of need for technique to the whole thing. So there you go. That is literally it. So you get 8 of these sprues. That's 16 chaps that you can assemble. Naturally, there's only two bodies. There's 3 heads. There's gladius, sheath, scabbard, and there's basically 2 or 3 combinations of arms that you can do, and then there's 2 shields. So what do we think? Well, it is naturally very limited, but what I would add is that from a perspective of a manufacturer, you can't really blame them for doing this. I don't think it would be cost effective for them to have a massively, a massive wide variety of Velites for you to be able to assemble. Now, as I recall, Victrix might have a similar kit out, and it'd be interesting to see what they've done. But I think for a small manufacturer like Agema, to be able to produce this in plastic is a bit of a feat. And the good news is with these miniatures is actually they are compatible with the other Agema Miniatures stuff, so you can actually kit bash these. And I think if you mix them up, which we'll see in another review that I do later, I think you'll see that actually they're a lot more versatile than immediately meets the eye, but certainly a good start. And then what I'll do now is just give you a painted example to really kind of hit home, I think, what the virtues are of this kit. Okay, and we're back, and here's a painted example. So I've based them up on a sort of DBA sized base, and I did a kind of highlighting technique here, so not a dip method, but I did do a sort of 3-level highlight, and I think you will agree that actually they've come out really nicely. Look there, the detail is good. I've picked out the creases in the cloth. The actual muscle definition is really good on these guys. Maybe a little bit too good, you might say. But yeah, absolutely a nice set of miniatures to put together. My only concerns, I think, are the join on the necks are a bit funny, because you've got the kind of a flat area with a flat area, and you've got to be quite careful, because the neck joint isn't really concealed all that much. You might end up with a slightly silly looking situation where the neck is quite clearly not properly seated. But I think I did them with red shields just to remind everyone that they're on the Roman side, just for the sake of ease. I think that's kind of about as uniform as I'd get. And I did them in 2 different tones of kind of linen. One's a slightly more bleached white, the other one's a kind of more natural linen color. And then I did them on a sort of sandy base with some tufts. And I think actually that's not a bad look. And they didn't take me a long time to paint, and I think one of the virtues of this kit is actually one of the good things about these types of miniatures is the lack of overt detail is quite good. You don't get lost on painting, you know, millions of pouches and stuff. If you've done World War II stuff with webbing, you find that you end up kind of getting lost in the details. And here it's a clean miniature. It's got some nice creases for you to work on if you want. You could maybe do a bit of edging on the tunic if you really wanted to. But I knocked these guys up in a few hours, you know, just putting paint on here and there. And actually they've come up pretty nicely. So I hope this video gives you a sense of what you can accomplish with these miniatures. Like I say, they're not the most versatile thing out in the, out on the market. And I think, you know, I'll get the box and I'll give you the exact wording of what they say. But the, you know, multi-part plastic miniatures, yes, they're multi-part. And they've been quite right to not put posable in there, because really there's not all that much in terms of posability going on. But a good set of miniatures, and I think if you were collecting Republican Roman army, you would be well served by buying a box or two of these. Now there's 16 in a box, and I suspect that if you're playing a game like DBA, you'll be putting them 2 to a base. You probably only need about 3 or 4 bases. You know, you need a proportional amount of these to your Hastati and your Principes and your Triarii. So what you'll be doing, looking to do, is I think build a relatively scaled force. So it's a case of for every base of these, you'll then need a base of all the other orders as well, more or less, except for the Triarii, which are obviously in a smaller proportion. But yeah, awesome. Look at that. So nice miniatures, good price, easy to assemble. These will be really fast to paint with using a dip method, which I think when I come to painting up the rest of the unit, I'd be quite keen to see if that actually, if the results are all that different. It might be worthwhile just simply smashing them out using a sort of army painter style wash and or dip and highlight method or something like that. But there you go. So done and dusted. And I think that is all for today. So I hope this has been a useful video. I know this kit's been out for a while, but I haven't seen much on the internet about it. So I thought I would just sort of add my 2 cents, and hopefully you found it useful. Yeah, nice kit. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll have some more content out for you soon. All the best. Goodbye.